a very young face. I was like, he looks
At
very
one
different.
point. At one point.
That guy looks fucking metal. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks
on his
because
head.
you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
You are, in fact, watching The Dorkening.
You're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned.
For all the geek news everywhere. Dorkening.
And this is The Dorkening. Trust me, I'm smarter than these guys.
Because The Dorkening is the best and most educational entertainment and information source that the Trauma Team knows of. It's the best. The Dorkening.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Splash Pages Comic Book Podcast. I am tonight Kari instead of Leo, so I am your Leo. I am the Cthulhu behind the keyboard for everybody tonight, and we've got a great show. We are going over the comic book Excalibur later. We have a lot of news, and we also have a very special guest. But before we get into that, let's go through and talk to really quick. How you doing tonight, Velvet?
Good evening, guys. Hey, it's your man, Velvet J. You know what time it is. 8 o'clock. Award-winning Splash Pages podcast. And we're here. It's Tuesday night. We have a great show. There is a lot of news built up this week, so we're going to talk about that, of course. And then we have a great guest who is a fantastic horror writer and all-around great guy. My buddy, but I'm not going to say his name yet because we got to introduce the rest of the crew. So I'm going to turn it over to
Hey, it's your man George. No, that's Velvet J. Okay. Hey, it's Tuesday night and it's another Splash Pages. And most of us are here and it's going to be fantastic, full of excitement. And as Kari said, we're going to be talking about Excalibur a little bit later. And as Velvet said, we have a very special guest tonight. But right now, over to my friend, the Blueberry Drewberry.
Ding.
For whom the bell tolls for thee. Hello, everyone. It's Splash Pages, and yet again, I'm the bottom of the barrel, but who's counting? Really excited to be here. We got a great book from the yesteryear of the X-Men. We've got a lot of news, a lot of stuff. My mustache is still here. We've got a great guest, but I drew the short straw on not introducing him, so we're going to go back to our Fleo. So take it away.
Take it. I got it. I've introduced this man a number of times, but joining us tonight, we have a special guest. He is an author, an artist, a narrator, a musician, the co-host of the Retro Ridoctopus Self-Filler podcast, and here to tell us all about his latest book, Black Honey and Other Unsavory Things, the man, the myth, the dork, Mr. Steve Van Samson.
Hey guys, how's it going? Hey, it's your man Velvet S. Velvet Parasite here again, back on the Splash Pages. I do things with my hands. No, I'm not Velvet. I love the way you introduce like yourself. I'm in awe. I'm having fun. I love you guys.
It's all good, man. I don't feel offended.
I love Splash Pages. I love all y'all. You guys are great. You have me on
the most energy out of all of us.
I love it. He's not like bing bang boom bing. You got such rhythm too, Velvet. Like every single time you're like, and I feel like you could keep going for like 2 minutes. And I'm like,
I could, but you know, we gotta move on.
And it's almost it is this close to poetry, and I'm here for it. I just want you to know.
I really appreciate that, Steve. I think I've been working on it. I'm very hard on myself. I've been telling Kari, I was like, after every episode, I'll watch the next day, and I'll be like, "Oh man, you said too many times." And I'm like, "Oh, you gotta be more boisterous. You gotta be a smooth opener. You know, you gotta get. You want to get.
You're a smooth customer. Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome. I have been on Splash Pages numerous times. It's one of my favorite guest spots to do. I love this show. It's awesome.
And the last time you were here, Steve, we were talking about She-Hulk, right? It was John Byrne's She-Hulk.
Yeah,
right?
I did a 2 weeks in a row. We talked about She-Hulk twice. It was like we did John Byrne, and then the next week we did Dan Slott.
Right.
Right.
That was really fun. Yeah.
Good time.
We had a great time.
Because I was one of the 4 people who liked that show. So hey, it's good to be positive.
All 4 of us are on the show. That's great.
Yeah, we all like it. And I've been on Retro Ridoctopus one time.
That's true. We talked about what did we talk about? Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, we had a Hanna-Barbera day. Yep.
Yeah, that was right. That was really fun.
Yeah. We should have had you on last week. We just did Future Quest, which had a lot of the Hanna-Barbera characters.
Nice. Yeah. So just briefly, Retro Ridoctopus, a show on the Dorkening. Some of you may have heard of it, but we do a lot of stuff. Just anything that's retro, anything that's things we loved growing up. So it could be movies, toys, video games, lots of stuff. I don't know. In the case of Hanna-Barbera, we did a whole Hanna-Barbera cartoon themed episode. And we usually kind of pick things and we just present them, and we just have a good time. Anyway, and I also write stuff sometimes too. So hey, for those of you who are here listening to me talk again with Kari Sanders, like I don't know why you need more. I don't know why.
Biggest fan.
This lady has just put me on so many podcasts. I don't know why you need more, but thanks.
Yeah.
For being here. Rob Smales, my buddy Rob's in the audience. I saw him pop up there.
Nice.
So
yep.
Hey,
I saw him on the other night.
Yeah, Rob's awesome.
So Steve, tell us about this new and exciting project that's just
Black Honey.
Sure. Black Honey and other
Unsavory.
unsavory things. Yes. So this, so we have two
Which
versions.
I'm gonna have to call a lie, by the way, because you have the Black Honey barbecue sauce out, and I believe from the reviews I've been hearing from people that it is quite delectable.
It's unsavory though. It is sweet. I don't know. But so this is my new book, and there are two versions. We put this out. This is Rough House Publishing, and if you look down here, it says my name, and then it says illustrations by, I don't know if you can read it. It's kind of a blurry. I wish this thing would like focus. It doesn't do that. Derek Rook is
it happens
the man
on this show a lot. People can't focus, neither can the cameras.
Well, the book hasn't been smoking the ganj, so there's a slight difference. So Derek Rook is the man behind Rough House Publishing. He did illustrations for this book right here, and he did the amazing cover. There are two versions. Yeah. This one is the hardcover, and the black and white cover is the paperback. Nice. Same illustration. And inside there is a whole bunch of goodies we pack in there. That's what we do at Rough House Publishing. As I opened it, like a whole bunch of crap actually fell out, which you probably couldn't see. But
you mean goodies, not crap.
Goodies, good crap. There's like bookmarks and stickers, some stickers. We had, this one. This is art by me. This one is art by Derek Rook. We wrote Black Honey, and I did the coloring. It's a lot of collaboration. The two of us are very art inclined, and also just interested in making everything look as cool as we can, and trying to add value to whatever it is that we're putting our efforts towards, and hoping that we can leave people really happy and give people collectibles. So like it doesn't feel just like another book. It just feels like something that you feel really good about. You're like, okay, cool. Like maybe there are people who bought plenty of people who bought both versions of the same book, because you got to have it all, kind of a thing. Like, and that's like the comic book mentality. So you guys understand that. Like, how many covers of the same issue do people buy? I mean, the last Ronin, the Ninja Turtle comic, had like 1,000 covers. I don't even know how you're supposed to own them all. But we this was kind of my favorite extra. We did a series of, well, my favorite extra is the hot sauce, which I actually don't have right here, but I know Kari has a bottle laying around somewhere. But this is these are our monster trading cards. We did them double size, so you can really get a good look at the art a little bit better. And these are all monsters from the stories in the book, and there is 6 of them, and most of them were drawn by Derek Rook and colored by Mike Broom. Mike Broom is a guy who he is out in California. He's an old friend. He actually works for Greg Nicotero. He's a really great, very talented guy. And so he was able to, we've been trying to work with him for a couple of projects. Derek used to do stuff with him back in the day. And so this just was the one that worked out, and we were really excited to have him on board. But yeah, so what it is it's 11 short horror stories, all written by me, and each one has an illustration by Derek Rook. So let me see if I can find one. Here we go. So this one here is the story No God But Hunger. And this is that artwork. There's 11 different ones. I love this one, Growing Just Beneath. Some of them are, it's always,
that's cool.
It's always like working in the name of the story in a graphical way, where you can you're getting some illustration. Like, okay, this guy's pulling up this clod of dirt and grass. And so what's that all about? Well, if you read the story, it all sort of makes sense. And so we had fun with it, and we're really proud of the presentation, and the sales have been very good, and we're very grateful to everybody who's shelled out some of their hard-earned cash on a horror book. And so that's Black Honey and Other Unsavory Things. We put it out a couple of months ago, and if you guys have any questions, like,
Are we breaking records?
Breaking records for
how's the reception, Steve?
Yes.
So breaking records for me, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, the sales have been great. I dropped one of the goodies.
What was the time frame that it took you to put the book together and get it all published?
So it was
what's a venture like this take?
Just under a year from the point where we were having the initial conversations of, like, Derek and I were kind of just conceptualizing the project in general. I knew I had a book of short stories kind of at this point, because, as you know, I write novels too, but as many novelists do, they write short stories as well. And some of those, you sell, you end up you give them to this book or that magazine or whatever, and other ones you don't. So you end up having this collection of these short stories that pile up, depending on how prolific you are. I'm not that prolific, but took me a few years. But I'm like, okay, I think I have at this point a book's worth of these. And so it was great. So some of the stories have been published elsewhere, and some of them are completely brand new. And one of them I wrote specifically for it. And actually the last story. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great excuse to be able to be like, okay, like, let's put all this hard work that I did over the last couple of years together into one big thing. So it's a very common thing to do, to just, put your own collection together, but we wanted it to be special. So it was a matter of like, okay, the way Rough House do is, it's all about the extras, and it's all about as much art as possible. And with Witchworm, so my last book with Rough House Publishing was Mark of the Witchworm, and we weren't able to really do this kind of a thing. I know that Derek was like looking to do that sort of a project, but Witchworm was just too long. It's like a 400-page novel. There's too many chapters. It would have been this bloated thing, and it would have probably been. It just wasn't the right project for that. But this is much shorter, and it's great because you can have like one drawing per story, and then we just kind of expanded it with the trading cards and had fun with it. But there's a lot of monsters in the stories, and I'm big on monsters. Most of you guys know that by now, and my this guy's actually my favorite of the cards. I don't know if I showed this one. This is my Lovecraftian type character. This is the buried god. I just didn't want him to be tentacles. I'm like, I want this giant, larger than life, because the guy is like down here. He's very small.
Oh yeah,
I can see it. He's like kind of falling back on his ass, and so this big creature is just erupted out of the side of a mountain, and he's been buried there for untold millennia. Who knows how long? And so I was like, okay, I really wanted to do like this Lovecraftian type god type thing, but does it have to be a squid? Like,
now, Steve, for those that want to buy, do the goodies come with the soft cover and the hard cover, or just the hard cover?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Velvet J. So actually, most of they come with the hardcover exclusively. So if you buy the soft cover, these are both available right now on roughhousepublishing.com. But I was told today that the hardcovers are, well, the hardcovers are close to selling out, but not as close as the Ultimate Edition is both. And the Ultimate Edition is the only way that you can get. There's one last little, so there it is. Kari has it. It's the bottle of black honey hot sauce that we had made, and that was actually made by a company called Silk City Hot Sauce. They are in Vermont. This is great company. This guy Jeff, he just makes these amazing hot sauces. He's really a craftsman. This is his passion in life. Yes. I think is
Steve, we pressured Kari on the Midweek Geeks to break
to openers
and have a
cool,
live tasting on the air.
Nice. So cool. Well, thank you.
Peer pressure.
Cave. I know she was trying to keep it, and I'm like, no, you got to enjoy it. It's food. Just eat it. You can keep the bottle.
It's
But,
like keeping a box of cereal. I don't understand it.
I don't
Like,
understand
I know
that at
people that
all.
have the Batman cereal still in box. I'm just like,
Right.
I
It's
don't
just
know
weird.
why. I could
It's just
understand
weird.
keeping the box maybe,
Yeah,
but not the cereal.
Just eat the cereal
Like,
and
I
keep the
would think
box.
over time the bag, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to
It
you,
is just
Steve.
it
How
is
long
just
have
like
you,
that though.
how long
So-
have you been writing for, and how long did like your short stories, combining them all? How
Mhm.
long? What's the earliest one that you have that's in the book?
Okay. The first one I ever wrote, the first short story I ever wrote and submitted, is in here, and it's a story that is now called Letter to Eveline. I don't know if you can see the
I
drawing.
really loved
Mhm.
the drawings.
The
These are
drawings. Yeah. Derek did an awesome job. So the story is called Letter to Eveline. It was the first one I ever wrote. I think I wrote it in 2018. I believe that's my oldest. Yeah, I think I wrote
so
that in
not
2018.
too long ago. That's
Yeah. I've been writing
I'm
longer
always
than that, but
impressed with like finding out like friends and stuff have these like talents of like writing books, and like because myself to read a book is difficult. To write a book,
Mhm.
No.
but I do have the stories inside. It's
Hmm.
impressive that you're able to tell them so well.
It's hard. I mean, finding the time is definitely the challenge, I mean, for
Mhm.
sure. But I think short stuff is both good and bad for time, because it's good in one way because you're like, okay, well, I only have to fill, X amount of pages, some small amount, X is only, 15 pages or something, 20 pages at most. And that's like, even then, that's kind of a long, short story. But the problem I have is if you're writing a lot of short stories, it's a lot of stop and go. So the rhythm gets interrupted every time you finish a story.
Mm.
And so like I just actually I can only talk about the next thing in broad strokes, but the next thing after this is another collection, and I was like writing those stories in a row, and it was like every time I'm like, because this one in Black Honey, a lot of those stories, like I said, they had been written casually, like over the months and years and stuff. And for this other one, the next thing that I can't really say anything about, that one, it's like different. So I'm trying to finish the stories for that. So I was finding like, wow, that actually takes up a decent amount of time to like, okay, I finished it. Cool. Now I have to start the next one. Brand new cast, brand new setting, brand new
different
everything. Right. Different vibe. So it's almost like, you're creating a novel every time, sort of. Whereas if you're writing a novel, you're only creating one thing, set of things at the beginning, and then you kind of just you just go until you're done for a really long time. So I almost think that writing the novels are almost easier. Not that it's easy at all, but anyway.
You're amazing at character
finding the time.
development. So once you get your characters going, if you can keep them going, and
what's your major inspiration when you're sitting down? What do you sit down? Say Steve's sitting down right now and he's about to do some writing. Sit down for 4 or 5. How many hours at a time do you write for? Anyways, as much as you can, or
well, it's mentioning Rob Smales in our listening audience tonight. He's a good friend, and something that he had told me in the past is something that I took to heart and have used recently, like this year for sure, which is to get up in the morning. So I think, well, I mean, to get up in the morning early. Let me finish. We all get up in the morning eventually, like but so to get up,
goes to bed in the morning.
Oh, well, she's an owl, so
yes.
So yeah, like if you're gonna get up at 6:30, get up at 5:30, or give yourself some extra time. And so I really got in a rhythm of like getting up, getting some tea, making some tea for myself, not coffee, and just sitting in my spot and just sitting down and trying to get a good hour and a half in the morning. And now sometimes that would turn into, so as readers, people always ask, in
what kind of tea are we drinking?
Whatever, different
Oh.
stuff. Usually, I mean,
I thought that's what
fruit
readers
teas.
always asked.
I like fruit teas. Doesn't matter. I like lemon a lot. But so no, like as a reader, a lot of people ask like, oh, how long is the story? How long is the book? Most readers will ask think of things in terms of page length. But as writers, we think of word length, but that is meaningless to a reader because you're not reading a book going, oh, this is X amount of words. Oh, look at how many words is in this. You can't judge it by that. You're judging it by the page count. But anyway, so if I can, as a writer, if I can get like 400 to 500 words in the morning in that hour and a half, I feel pretty good. And there were times where like I would get 6. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, that was a really good morning. And then if I can, throughout like either lunch break or like at the end of the day or something like that, if I can hit 1,000, then I'm good. If I can hit 1,500, then I'm great. And if on the rare occasion you go more than 1,500, or a rare for me anyway, because some writers do it like it's nothing, then I feel really, really good. You know, and there were a few times that I was able to hit that like 2,000 words in one day count. And the only way I was able to do that is by getting that head start that Rob had suggested, because it's sort of like, you know, it kickstarts your brain thinking about the story for the day. You know, it's you're not like putting it off until the end of the day. You're already thinking about it, and the gears are going, and you're like, okay, you kind of just want to keep going. And it makes it easier on like a lunch break or something like that to be like, okay, I can continue now rather than start.
You know, for those of us with wicked bad memories, how do you keep all your stories? Like, do you have like a storyboard in front of you when you come up with ideas and you're like, all right, here's Tristan's over here, and like, just in case when this woman gets her kid killed, I have to remember that it's his grandson and there's blah blah blah. Like, how do you keep your brain with the story and that you're not forgetting intricate parts and stuff?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you know, I have notes. Taking notes is very common, and you know, different people do it to different degrees. I would say that I refer to the notes a lot more with the short stories, and whenever I think Drew started to ask the question. I think it was Drew, like, you know, or maybe it was you, Jar Jar, earlier. Then you said like somebody was going to start to say, I think, like, okay, well, if you're, what's your inspiration? Like, what the ideas or something? I don't know when the ideas are going to hit, but when they do, I sit down wherever I am, and I'm like, okay, if I'm like driving or if I'm at work or whatever, I'm just going to keep thinking about it. I'm just going to keep thinking about it and not stop thinking about it. And by the time I'm able to write it down, I just blur it out. Like, usually it's like Fast and Furious 1,000 words of notes. Like, that happens all the time. And then I just leave it and I walk away, and I know I'm not going to forget it. It's fine. It's all written down. And when I am able to, I'm going to take inspiration and be like, oh, gee, like, which one of these should I go back to? And that tends to be it. Rarer than that is when I have an idea for a story and I sit down immediately and write it right then, because usually there's something else going on. So you can't just stop, or you can. Some people do. Some people, like, 100% will just hop off whatever they're doing and do different things, and they're writing 6 different things at once. I just personally don't like doing that. So I you know, but I will stop and write the notes. I'll write that 1,000 words of notes, like, no problem. And then just from there, I'll put it on the shelf and not worry about it. But so a lot of these stories were like that, you know, had the idea, wrote some notes, kind of thing.
So, well, regarding your stuff, like, you know, the illustrations definitely kind of, in my mind, conjure up, you know, like EC Comics, kind of Tales from the Crypt kind of detail, very gory, you know, but very, you know, intricate and whatnot. But the question I have, Steve, is with horror. I mean, fairy tales were created to be cautionary tales. You know, there was always a lesson, and we've seen that in certain horror that there's always a point to the story or a moral. The best thing that comes to mind is Michael Dougherty's Trick or Treat. Everything had a lesson. It was based on something. So for your stories, you said you had different stories, different monsters. Are there, cautionary tales to your stories? Are there lessons, or, I don't want to say like, is there a point to it? Because it's not, it's not the right way to look at it. But, is there a lesson to be learned in fighting the monsters ye created?
I would say I don't have like a hard and fast rule. Like I don't have, I sometimes do, sometimes not so much. I always try to put enough into every story, even the short ones, that there is a decent amount going on and there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. There is a story that I actually read on Kari's podcast called Zen Daxar, and it's about a 1980s. The setting is a 1980s arcade, and in that one's sort of like a ridiculous cautionary tale. Like the guy learns his lesson, and it's like, oh, don't be this way, sort of a lesson. But it's like nobody would really do that. But it's my that one's like my creep show, over the top sort of thing. But sometimes there's that, and sometimes it's just spotlighting a dark side of humanity in some way, or what happens if I mean, I do have one story. I've literally, the only one I've ever written is with a kids that have kids and bullies. Like I wrote a kids and bullies on bikes story, and that's in here, and that's called Off Road. And that one deals with the loss of it's really about finding friends in a place where this kid moves into a very different place where he grew up. And he was from Detroit, and he moved to Aspen. Basically, it's this fictional Aspen-like place in Colorado I made up, and there are just jerks that are there, and he loses the only friend. So he lost all his friends because he moved, and he had one left. His one best friend in the entire world was his dog, and you learn pretty early in the story that the dog has been killed in a car accident the previous week. So this kid is really in a bad spot, and the bullies just don't stop. They don't care, so it's sort of like just the story of what happens and how he's able to find a new friend maybe. And it's terrible. It's all terrible.
It sounds lovely though.
Yeah, very upbeat.
It's definitely there's definitely a lot of nightmares in these stories I try to put in there, but there's there's often like glints of humor in there too. Like I can't help but put a little bit of humor in there. It's just me.
Absolutely.
But,
Steve, where or in this collection, Black Honey, about 12 stories, which story to you is like means the most to you, and why?
Well, the one that means the most to me is definitely the title. The title track is what I was gonna say just now.
Okay.
The titular story, the title track is Black Honey, and the reason is because that I had the hardest time writing that story of any story that I've ever written. For some reason, I started it a couple years ago. I started it 2 months before my dad passed away, and I could not get it done. I worked on it, and then he passed very suddenly, and I stopped writing for the longest time. I didn't write anything for like 4 months after. I was just not in a good spot. And and then I was starting to feel like, okay, like you need to like do something, like get back to it.
Life
like
can move forward. I have a family. I got to snap back.
I want to snap back. I don't want this to be the death of this, at all. And neither would he. And so I was like, okay, I gotta go back to that Black Honey story. Like I gotta go back to that. And I I rewrote the thing so many times, and like I wrote this happens to me. I don't know if this happens to anybody else when you're like creating something. Like sometimes the beginning is the hardest part, and then I will rewrite beginnings, like some not always, but this has definitely happened in other cases. I'll rewrite the beginning like 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and like completely, and I'm like, nope, the wrong person is telling the story. Nope, it's too funny, or nope, it's not funny enough, or nope, it's this is going on too long, I'm bored, or no, it's too short, or whatever it is. It's all like it just can't get there. And that's what kept happening with the story. I couldn't get past the beginning for the longest time. So anyway, 4 months after, I went back to it, and something finally clicked, and I was able to get past where I was just stuck. I was just so incredibly stuck. And it turned out to be the longest story in the collection. And it turned out to be the title track as well. And it wasn't planned to be at all. The book was going to be called something else. And I remember this very distinctly. I remember this one day I was with Derek Rook, and we were, I think we saw a movie. Maybe we saw the Batman, actually. And
Nice.
we were hanging out, and we got tickets, and then we were like, oh, we got some time, let's grab a coffee or something. And we were just kind of hanging out, and I was telling him about Black Honey. I'm like, oh, I'm not done with it at that point, but I was just telling him like the basic beats of the story and how it was and stuff. And he's like, man, this is the book. He's like, you got to call it this. You got to call it Black Honey. And this is definitely the titular story. And I'm like, wow, that would work. That would work. Like, I can see that. Like, yeah. And I remember I went home, and because I had a very different vision for what we were gonna call it, and I went home and I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, no, he's yeah, Black Honey. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That works. So like, it was just like a very hard thing, and it's definitely the story I'm the most proud of.
Great. And the connection to your dad makes it even more solidified, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah, it's just a weird time, like it was just weird how it all happened. And
well, they say when you're going through pain is when you really many times write your best stuff. So you just had to get out of it, and then you wrote one of your favorite stories now.
It is. It is.
And I know my co-host down there, Drew Mollo, has been trying to or at least would like to publish a book.
I'm working.
Steve, what pushed you, Steve, to publish your first book? What made you finally, went from writing because obviously you love it, to making the jump to saying, all right, I'm going to put this out to the world and see if I can make some money of it, and if not, I hope people read it and love what I write, and I'll grow.
Right. Well, I started writing kind of a long time ago. I mean, it was, probably more like, 2005 or something. I mean, I wrote almost 2 novels that will never see the light of day. And those are really important. Like, that's a really important step to write the shit, the crap that sucks. And that's true of anything. Like, you have to do that. You have to do the bad. You got to get better. You can't start good. You're going to suck. And that's just all there is to it. And so it took me so long to write those first 2 books. I mean, I was at that for like 6 years or something. I don't know. Like, it was forever. And then it was a while, and I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to do something, and I didn't know if I should like go back and like try to rewrite those books, or if I was just ready to move on. And they weren't horror, and I was like, I don't know why I'm fighting horror. I want to write horror. I don't know what I was thinking. I want to write horror for sure. And so it's just one of my big passions. Like, whatever. Why am I fighting this? And so, I mean, I went to a couple of like get-togethers with there's a lot of local authors that that are in this area, that are in the New England area. And there was, at that time, there was this thing called the Writers Coffee House, and it was put on by Christopher Golden and James A. Moore. They did it, and they were they're just really old friends, and they're local guys, and it's great. It's like, yo, you get to hang out with, these. I mean, Chris Golden's Chris Golden. Like, if you don't know who he is, I mean, the guy's like done everything. And it was just cool. So it's like, okay, I'll go to this. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna find here. And it turned out like I made a lot of like friends with people that I'm still friends with now. So that was probably 2016, and that made me really, really want to have something in the world out. That was like where so really that was the inciting incident where I'm like, okay, I really like this. I really had a good time like meeting these people and seeing all these cool things that they do and these books that they've written and all this stuff. And I don't think that was actually the very, very first thing I did, but that was the big first thing where I was like, okay, I need to have something out before I come to another one of these. I want to be like one of these people. Like, I think it'd be really cool to be like, all right, well, I have this out, rather than saying, I've been working on stuff. I don't know. I wrote 2 books. They sucked. Like that's
sure.
Essentially
Absolutely.
it. And so I kind of, that's what really, like, I'm like, all right, I got to do something. And that something ended up being The Bone Eater King, which was my very first book. And that came out in 2017.
Okay.
Nice.
And now, Steve, my last question for the interview is actually going to be for Miss Kari Sanders about you. So, Kari, now you are definitely one of Steve's super fans. Would you say so? That's correct?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe it's possible.
Yeah.
Now, so
I
would imagine then, being a super fan, you have read all of Steve's work. Is that correct?
Oh, don't put her on the spotlight. It's okay if you haven't.
Yeah,
it's totally okay.
As far as I know, I have actually.
Okay.
Kari
And
reads
you
a
finished
lot
Black
and
Honey?
quick.
That's the last question.
Yes, I have a bunch of notes on Black Honey actually.
Okay, you
I
have a bunch
reread
of
it
notes,
again
but now,
today.
having read Steve's progression to now, can you give us your unadulterated review of Black Honey?
Boom.
Well, okay, you have to understand that I started off. This is how I met Steve, and Steve is actually the reason why I am here tonight in a very roundabout way. We were both in a book called Mollo from Mythos, and I started following him. And you guys had a show for his first book, Mark of the Witch. His first book that you did on here, which was Mark of the Witch Worm, that I've done a show on, and just stumbled on it. And but I saw that, and then I started following The Dorkening, and I started following you, and I've been following Steve ever since. And so watching his progression, I started buying all of his back stuff. So I do have the Bone Eater King and Marrow Dust. And I want to check No God But Hunger is part of which is one of the second story in Black Honey, is a prequel basically to the Bone Eater King, correct?
Right. Yep.
It takes place in the Predator world.
It takes place. It takes place directly, like minutes, essentially, or like an hour.
Look at Steve's face. He's like, they've made the connection.
I know. I'm so glad.
Yes.
That's these guys.
Very cool. Go ahead, Kari. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, but no, but it's beautiful as you watch where he's gone with stuff. He was talking about the Zandraxar, which is also in. I was reading Rob Smales the other night, and I found that one in. Was it Totally Tubular Terrors?
Yes,
I think was an '80s collection that you were in. So I found
that
one.
Was, yep.
There,
yep.
And I'd read it.
Was...
But he.
Go ahead.
You are all about the monsters, and I do love that about it. But your monsters aren't always. Sometimes you guys know the people are the monsters. Oh, wrong kind of thing. But sometimes there are real monsters and people who are monsters, and maybe the monsters aren't, they're still
monsters.
bad, but sometimes
They're
people
not
can
the
be
worst
even
monsters.
worse.
Right.
Yeah.
I may be a bad guy, but I'm not a bad guy.
Not the bad guy.
Yeah,
we have Zangief here.
Would you rather die slowly or quickly, or
Right.
kind of things? But I think that there's been a lot of progression. I think you keep going in great directions. I do love all the shorts
Thank
that you
you.
write, and I'm excited to read more novels as they come out. I'm not sure exactly what you have going on right now, but hopefully we'll get some more stuff.
Will you have any copies with you, Steve, at Terrificon?
Well, it's funny. I certainly wasn't planning on bringing any. I can throw some
Maybe
on
you
the table.
should.
Yeah,
I can
that
throw some
would
on the
be-
table. Sure.
Yeah,
because
man.
I
Grand
will,
idea.
we'll be there with the Dorkening. But we do have some stuff where we haven't announced yet, but the hopes are to be in at a couple more cons this year. We did
Nice.
Monster Expo about a month and a half ago, I guess. That was really, really fun. We've been at every Monster Expo so far. That was like the 5th one, I think. They started doing them twice a year last year. So yeah.
Steve, you might want to reach out to Jabo. There's a new one coming to Marlborough mid-June. I think it's called Contropolis.
Oh, I saw that.
Contropolis,
I
yeah.
saw that. Yeah.
He has some involvement in that. That's with
Are those all connected to Altered Reality?
to Rhode Island. Yeah.
Yeah,
Rhode
yeah.
Island Comic-Con. Just
Cool
an idea.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to push
They're
my
doing
buddies.
a lot of cons.
I'm
I
really
have
Because
I'm super glad, Steve, that this is doing well for you.
Thank you.
Same.
oh, definitely.
And the fact that it's your latest thing and it's your, like you said, it's your biggest. So super congratulations. And
Thank you.
It's only getting better, my friend.
Agreed.
Thanks, brother.
I have a couple questions for you real quick too.
Oh,
First off, because I haven't gotten to talk to you actually about Black Honey, the stories before.
Right,
I've gotten to show it off. This is the first time we actually have sat down and read it. So the Cryptique stories, there were 2 of them. Is that going to be an ongoing thing? Or if you feel like talking about, do you have ideas? Is it?
There's at least one more story that will be released by Roughhouse at some point.
Okay.
That's all I will say with that. But it's kind of a fun little verse. I just accidentally turned it into a little microcosm. I wasn't intending on it, but the first story I wrote with that was Monster Financing Available. And
that was hysterical.
That was very much my like cheesy horror movie, like my this is my asylum like movie sort of a thing. Like I was just trying to have fun and trying to be funny. And I don't know, it basically at the heart of it, the heart that I found in that story, the unexpected heart is like, okay, let's, there are plenty of places in this country that are, towns that have died or, not doing well. When industry moves out, this is an old story. So my idea was like, okay, well, what if like, there's a town like this and there's a company out there and they engineer monsters, right? And what they do is they find places like that, or like the oil, the Prince Spaghetti Company packed up and moved out, or the coal mine shut down, or whatever it is, and the town's just in decline and dying on the vine. And what happens if they go there and they say, well, like, we can give you your own Loch Ness monster or whatever monster, but
cool.
that idea. So it's like, oh, we'll give you a champ for Lake Champlain.
It's
that
almost
kind of
like Scooby-Doo, but without the little detectives
foiling
the monster.
But there's a real monster, though. They make them, and then they install them. And then, the idea is that it will get seen a few times, and then all of a sudden people start writing stories. It'll make national news. People will come in droves. They'll try to see the monster, and all of a sudden, the town is doing better than it was. And that's the idea. But things go horribly wrong, of course, because it's a horror story. So
yeah,
Right.
it's like Scooby-Doo meets Cabin in the Woods, kind of.
Or Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Drew,
it's
have you
supposed
ever written a horror story?
What's that?
Drew? I was wondering if Drew ever wrote a horror story.
You know, it's actually funny. I completely forgot about this. Like, he's telling these stories, and I remember in high school I wrote this horror story called The House, and it was like, and I wrote it, and I showed it to one of my teachers, and I don't really know what she said about it, but I just remember, like, this was my big cinematic horror movie. Like, I had like this poor defenseless girl being subjected to like these horrible things, and it's funny because when I was writing the story, I imagined it as in my childhood home. So that's the thing. But the way I was writing it is if my childhood home was like a mansion, because I was talking like there was like tons of supernatural activity, like dead alive gallons of blood, just poltergeist level craziness. And I just wrote it, and it was very much, a high school thing, but. And I don't know what happened to my copies of it, because I remember I wrote everything and I kept saving them on floppy disks, which is carbon dating how old I am, doing that. But, and like hearing Steve's and I was like, I wonder what happened to that story. Like, fuck me, man. Like, so and then I'm like, yeah, because it's funny because I was telling Kari at some point that I've been working on a lot of kids' books. And every once in a while, and I told her that these books I have, they're always like they're kids books, but they have little flashes of horror in them. And I know the one that she really liked. I had this one about this kid who's convinced that a squid is in his basement, and his dad helps him get rid of it. And it was like the most random thing, and I had a little Cthulhu nod at the end, and of course. Miss Lovecraft over there was like, "Ooh, oh my God, hi," and then that just kind of evolved, and I was just like, "What else can I do?" Because I just created this little world where kids deal with, they're bothered by these creatures, and the adults know all the answers,
right?
So they're like, "Oh, there's a boogeyman under my bed. All right, Grandma knows. Oh, there's a pterodactyl in the attic. Okay, Grandpa's got this."
Yeah, see, I mean, that sounds really fun. That sounds like you could go places with that, tell a lot of stories with that.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was just like I just have these ideas and they just go nowhere. Not what they go nowhere. I'm like, ugh. So, but I think some of that is just life is exhausting, and sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna write, but sleep though. So I feel like I need to do Steve's kind of like what I do with my exercise. I need to be like, all right, cool, I'm up. I'm gonna write for 30 minutes.
Sneak it in.
If you just got to break the seal. You just got to finish one thing, and then that second thing is not gonna be anywhere near as hard to finish. And then you just keep going. It's just the whole thing,
Right. I think that's what it is.
I totally get it. On a different level with me doing the video content pieces, I really commit to these 3-day. And
thanks, Colleen.
I got home really late. I only banged out one piece, and I know after the show I'm gonna be exhausted, but I'm gonna bang out those other 2 pieces.
Yeah.
You better.
You gotta make the
bang
commitment.
them.
Yeah, bang them.
Bang them out. Bang them
with my fingers.
But I have like one other question, but I'm just gonna save it for later because I was like, wow, we got so much more to do.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say thanks to Colleen. Colleen left me a very nice compliment there. My buddy Colleen.
Oh, nice.
Who was this close to going to see Shin Kamen Rider with myself and my co-host 8-Bit Alchemy last Wednesday, but she had to move that day, so that took precedence. You believe that? You believe that? Yeah.
That's a good friend.
She's great.
What I'm going to bug you for the last one here is we were talking about the super fanning out, and I think I'm in a war with Patsy over who is your great, who's the better fan. And I have my 2 copies of the Ultimate Edition of Mark of the Witchworm. But when I was talking about having issue number 3 or the 3rd numbered copy of the numbered and signed Black Honey 50 copies. He said he had 2. Now, did he get the first 2? Or
I don't know.
Because I was late to your interview, sitting there waiting for like the clock to roll so I could order the first thing. So
the hardcovers specifically come signed and numbered, signed by both myself and Derek Rook, and they're numbered. It's limited to, I think we did. Shoot, I don't want to say the wrong number. I can't remember how many hardcovers there are.
Kari, you're going to Terrificon, correct?
Correct.
She's trying.
Wait. Terrificon.
Is it official?
Oh yeah, 150. Yeah.
Yeah, it is official. I just have to book the flights. We're doing that this Friday.
Cool.
I have to wait until I can. So
now, to show that you're the bigger super fan, you just bring your book number 3 down to Steve, and you have him remark it.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the only remarked copy.
And Steve, being an artist, he might put a little sketch on the inside.
Hold on a second.
That would be pretty official.
Hey, Jenny, how's it going?
Yeah.
I'll always do a little sketch on the inside.
And make sure he writes to my number 1 fan, and then you can be like, look, see, he said it himself.
And he's gonna
look how happy she is. Look how happy she is right now. She's like, woo!
That bitch is plotting. She's like,
a mutual friend of Rob Smales and myself is this man Tom Dede, and I should say Bram Stoker award-winning author Tom Dede, and he's a great guy from Holliston, Massachusetts. Originally, now he moved far away. Oh, poor Tom. But I saw him last year, and I bought a book off him, and I'm like, he's like, oh, cool, here you go. And I said, okay, Tom, well, I need you to sign it. He's like, okay. And I said, oh, you need to make it out to my favorite person in the entire world. And he's like, okay. So I have his book, and it says, to Steve, my favorite person in the entire world. I know I'm not, but it's a lie. It's a lie, but like, what I can show that to people. They'll be like, look, it literally it says it's printed.
Rob was appalled that I took my books out of the bubble wrap to take pictures of them, even though I put them right back in and then store them away. He's like, you don't take them out. I'm like, I read them all on Kindle. I don't do anything like that.
You expose them to oxygen?
I show the thing. I give them a quick sniff. I give them a hug. They go back in bubble wrap and get stored away, and everything.
What was that movie that like David Duchovny played? He was like a hand model that kept it. Oh, was it Zoolander? And he had his hand was in a glass case, and then, like he was protecting his hand like it was a vacuum sealed case for his hand, and it accidentally got like busted at one point, and then it just all dried out and shriveled up. And
that's Zoolander. Are you kidding? I just told you that like 10 minutes ago. Yeah, but no, definitely. And look, everybody, if you like what you hear, you can catch all of these great people at Terrificon in July. We'll all be there. Maybe.
And more importantly, the point of this evening, if you want to go out and get that most fantastic Steve Van Samson book, Black Honey, in the show notes above or down below, you can see the links, or you can go right to Steve Van Samson,
www.roughhousepublishing.com, and there are a very limited number of the Ultimate Edition, which is both copies, which is the only way you can currently get that little bottle of hot sauce. Yes, it comes in a bulletproof. No, it's not bulletproof. It's stomp proof.
Just about.
It's crush proof for sure.
That's good.
If you're interested in that, then that is on there. There are also the other 2 versions. The paperback is only $15. It does it does come with I think it comes with the bookmark. I think we did, and I signed the paperbacks as well. The signed and numbered edition, where we both signed, Derek Rook and myself, and we numbered it. That's just the hardcover though, but it's all on there, and the information's all there, and it's clear, and it's done up in these cool infographics.
On the hardcover, I'm assuming it has a slip cover, right? Or a slip case or of some sort.
Yeah.
Underneath that, what does it look like? I always like to take those off, and it's usually. Oh, look at that!
Damn, that's sexy.
That is beautiful.
That is some horror hottie right there. Look at
That's
that.
Sexy.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved the look of.
And you know what's funny, when I heard the name of the book, I was like, Black Honey, like the Thrice song, like
Black Honey.
I was like,
the
okay.
imagery perfectly matches the name, Steve. It's like when when you first told me Black Honey, like I had an image in my head, and then you showed me the cover, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like what I was thinking. That fucking works so well.
Yeah. This was Derek really knocked it out of the park. The cover's insane. I mean, it's just so incredibly amazing. So the lady is the monster of this story. And we call her the Grendel Hive. She is a living hive, basically, this lady. So the bees are in her, and it ain't pretty. Actually,
that's pretty creepy.
He prettied her up a little bit for that cover.
Nice. Well, Steve, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. You are certainly welcome to hang out with us if you want to talk about comic book news.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
Awesome. So as it happens, I am like the world's biggest Nightcrawler fan. You probably can't see. Let's see. You can't really tell. There's a Nightcrawler shelf right there. It's like all Nightcrawler crap. There he is. He's that top corner there. And I loved this book when I was a kid. I had to get it, of course. I was a huge Nightcrawler fan.
Before we go into the comic, we're going to go through comic book news.
So, but before we do anything, so Steve, are you excited that Nightcrawler is going to be part of his own Spider-Man book where he's
Venomized?
going to be? No, he's not Venomized. He's actually going to be dressed as a spider, helping out New York and stuff. It was, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah. That answers my question. Yeah. Look at that dopeness.
The uncanny Spider-Man. Right. I can't even get over it. Are you kidding me? I can't get over it. I like I said, my feelings on Marvel books these days are mostly more miss than hit. But that I'm like, I might pick that up. That's pretty cool. But news. We got news. Comic book news.
Okay.
And
we lost Velvet.
Oh, and the circus is left. Okay, he'll be back. All right. So
all right. So,
who wants to start?
That would be
I believe this would all be you. Okay. Well,
or is
we were just starting with.
Oh my God. Service. All right, I've got a sweet pile of news. So, hello everybody. Comic book news we got. So, first things first, on the news, a little discussion here on this one. Marvel has confirmed that there will be a new Superior Spider-Man series with the writer Dan Slott returning. Now, everybody will remember this because this spun out of Amazing Spider-Man issue 700, where we saw the longtime enemy of Spider-Man, Dr. Otto Octavius, a.k.a. Doc Ock, as Stan Lee loved to call him, was dying. His body had suffered way too much damage from being essentially whooped all these years. His body was dying. He created a plan to switch minds with Peter Parker. And in that case, Peter died and Ock was in Peter's body. So this left Otto as the Spider-Man at that time, creating a more lethal Spider-Man, one where Peter Parker had his own company, his own love, a lot of shit happened.
Readable. Very readable.
It was. And I know it was very controversial, which I feel like now it's a rite of passion. Dan Slott definitely received some death threats over it, which is sad that that's now like a rite of passion for comic book writers. But of course, eventually, part of Peter's mind survived. He would return. Otto would sacrifice himself, but somehow would not die. He would continue and eventually ends up in a clone body, where he's still Doc Ock. And then most recently in the Free Comic Book Day, we saw that he had returned to his old look and still with the metal arms, because why ruin something?
Why not?
Yeah. Why change anything? Let's just go back to status quo. So
call that cloney woney comic book nonsense.
Boom, exactly. Cloney woney comic book nonsense.
Cloney woney. It's
like
not
that.
timey wimey. It's cloney woney.
No, cloney woney. So we're not really sure if this is going to be a story that's going to be taking the place of the original Superior Spider-Man. If this is a new one, we're really not sure about that. But it's already created a lot of discussion. Slott is currently writing a Spider-Man series with Mark Bagley, where they've introduced a new character whose name was Spider-Boy, which has been widely not well received.
It's crazy how in the comic book world, the buying and selling comic book world, I was shocked how fast that book shot up in value and then crashed right along. Like it's knowing, but like it was telepath or not. That's not the right word, but they told everybody that it was coming. They're like, Spider-Boy's coming. There's going to be this variant that has him on the cover and everything like that. And you could order as many as you want.
So what was the big letdown? Because they were touting that the character was someone that's been around for years.
Right.
So what was the big reveal, Drew?
Honestly, I didn't really look into it too much. I have not really. It's funny enough, actually. I think ever since, because I read snippets of Nick Spencer's Spider-Man, which was fine, in my opinion. But Dan Slott was the really last Spider-Man series I was reading. I really enjoyed what he brought to the character, the changes he made, the stories. I mean, I had been following him since he showed up as a writer in Brand New Day, like way back in the day.
Jeremy, with it crashing, did you hear anything about why?
No, I'm like Drew on it. Didn't really interest me at all. The name right away, I was just like, Spider-Boy. Oh,
yeah.
You guys really went out on that one.
I mean, that's the low hangingest fruit ever.
Yeah,
there already was a Spider-Boy. It was the Amalgam verse.
Yeah,
I knew there was.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was like, I got the first appearance of that.
Sometimes you swing and you miss.
It's true, but I know Dan Slott's. He has his moments. I know he's had issues on Twitter, I guess, going back and forth with fans. But personally speaking, I thoroughly enjoyed his Spider-Man. So I'm curious, but I'm not exactly going to run out and buy the first issue. So I need to see a little bit more, in my opinion. But, him coming back to Spider-Man, I'm all for it. So that's just my thoughts. So
and the return of Doc Ock in that Superior Spider-Man angle.
Yeah,
that was probably one of the last good Spider-Man series that I remember reading before I quit reading. So
there you go.
It definitely was.
I really like Doc Ock as he seems to be like, he's a villain, but he still has the heart, at least in the stuff that you've had me reading so far. The Spider-Man, like some of the other villains are just terrible human beings, but Doc Ock always has that last little bit of humanity that he tries to not be a total jerk.
Variant number one.
Well, the thing being is, Kari, is that with Doc Ock, he was a scientist, and his problem was, that his always ego. His childhood was very rough, so he always threw himself into his work, and everything was always about proving his intelligence, proving that he was the better. Which is funny that he would not get along too well with Norman Osborn, considering they're both very egotistical. But of course, Norman has the one thing that Ock doesn't have. He's fucking insane.
Oh, he's a horrible human. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, while we are talking about Spider-Man, I might as well segue to my one news piece. You guys, Across the Spider-Verse this weekend did $120 million.
Wow.
Which is bigger than which is bigger than Guardians of the Galaxy opened by like $3 million.
That's understandable. I feel like Spider-Verse was well received. The original one was well received by everyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those ones where you had like some fanboys were like on board, and then the other world was like, F this. How are you going to do a cartoon? But
right, and it's interesting also that a lot of people didn't know, and I've seen some nerd backlash out there that it's a part 1 of 2, and the second part will be coming out next year.
I had no idea. I had
know.
no idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
I found out through you, Rich.
Yeah, because if you went to
Same.
the theater and you didn't know that going in, you might have been a little mad at the end. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I did talk to someone who said that some character arcs are over by the end of this first incarnation, but it's definitely not the whole story.
Okay. I mean,
cool.
And I'll
down with
float
that.
something.
Hey,
I'll
I
float
had to
something
deal with
interesting to
Back to
you
the
guys
Future. Come on.
with how Peter Parker Spider-Man has been kind of not so well received lately. What about throwing Miles at Spider-Man and throw Peter Parker to, like, I don't know, throw him in a cocoon or in a multiverse for a few months, and why don't we just have Miles as Spider-Man for a while?
Well, but that's the thing, Rich, is that Miles was created when there wasn't a Peter Parker. So then you have that, and then because he was so popular, when his world ended, he still made it in, and then you had the more than one. I don't think they'll ever kill the mainstream Peter Parker, especially as long as they keep making movies off of him, which is the same logic why I don't believe Kamala Khan's death. Sorry that we might be spoiling that for you people, but it's been everywhere, so deal with it.
Well,
In Amazing
Spider-Man
Spider-Man,
is definitely the Marvel tentpole for sure.
Yeah. So I think the other thing being is that because a lot of them are tied into properties, movies, television, the deaths don't ever really feel like they're going to stick. There's always going to be some way of bringing them back. Time travel, magic, cloning. It's just
clony-wony. Clony-wony nonsense.
It
Timey
just
wimey.
doesn't make sense to care about the death.
Bippity boppity boop. Or as I like to say, bippity boppity bullshit. So in the end, like I said, Dan Slott coming back to Spider-Man, especially one that in my mind, I don't know how many people could have pulled it off, but he made Superior Spider-Man fun. And that is the best kind of Spider-Man, is one that's fun. Like you can take it to dark places. And he definitely did. But the thing I always liked about Slott Spider-Man is he got the humor well. Like one of my favorite moments in Superior is when Peter's back in his body and he's facing Norman as the Goblin again. Because this whole time he hadn't been the Goblin, but he's back. And Norman is talking about winning, and Peter just quips and he says, "Yeah, well, I never had the dignity to rock a man purse." And Norman just looks at him, and there's a close up of his eye, and he's like, "It's you." Like he knows, like it's you again. And he's like, the one and only. And I'm like, this is such a great moment between them. And like Slott knew that. He knew how to take it. He knew how to build that world, but kind of keep, keep the core essentials of Spider-Man strong while not being afraid to make changes, which is always, in my opinion, the problem with comic books, is that fans want change, but then they complain about it when change comes. And at this point, I'm just gonna be like, okay, change
characters, but I don't want to read them.
But that's exactly my thing. Like you complain, complain, but we don't see you writing. We don't see you trying to break in the biz to get there. And I mean, fuck. Like, listen, it's doable. I mean, I remember how Jeff Johns got his foot in the door. The man lucked into being Richard Donner's assistant, and it was a happy accident. Look where he is now.
The White Knight series, I mean, that was definitely a risk, and that could have suffered the same thing, but it did not. It was well received, it was well written, and people didn't bitch about it. So
yeah, exactly. So listen, this is one of the few times lately in the last year or two that I've been like, okay, Marvel catching my interest, cool. But am I going to go out and buy it? I don't know. Maybe not. But whatever. But Rich, I'm very excited. I'm seeing Spider-Verse this Friday with Ange, and I'm very excited. I'm excited to hear what you guys think of it, especially since we've read a lot more Spider-Verse stuff. We're a bit more equated to it, and to be quite honest, I'm also really excited where it comes out because it can be something we can talk about with people like Rick Leonardi, who gave us some spoilers for it back at Rhode Island last year. So definitely got a props to him. Yeah.
Drew, I'm excited you're going to go see that in the theater. And on Friday, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And on this upcoming Tuesday, I am going to go see the screener of The Flash.
Cool.
Well, it looks like next Tuesday is going to be a big and formal day.
So I will probably not be on the show or be at the very end of the show, but I will give you my initial reactions of the show. We're seeing at 7:00, and you guys should still be on around 9:30. If I'm flipping out or I'm like, we shall see.
Am I going to be a velvet?
What's that, Kari?
Am I going to be a velvet or am I a poker?
Leo.
Could be.
A velvet.
Drew, what else we got?
Okay, we got some more news going on here.
I do got
more news. We got news plenty, don't you?
We got some Loki stuff going on here.
Yes. All right. So, we've talked about Loki in the past, but there's a new Loki series out, and in this one, Loki must save the Marvel universe from himself. So, for those that have been keeping up, Loki is no longer the god of lies, but he's actually now the benevolent god of stories. But his past as the trickster god of lies and Asgardian lore is coming back to haunt him when powerful ancient weapons that he once built are scattered across the 10 realms. So in this book by rising stars Dan Waters and Jermaine Peralta, Loki must track down these weapons before they go into the wrong hands and bring around, again, Ragnarok. So there's going to be guest stars, new characters, twists, and a beautiful cover that we just saw by Dustin Nguyen, great artist. That's coming out this week. That's going to be coming out tomorrow. So we've talked about Loki before. The last time I believe we had the great Mitch Halleck, who puts together Terrificon. We talked about an arc from Loki.
It was young Loki, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Loki. We all really enjoyed it. So I think it's always really interesting that Loki is literally always haunted by himself. There's always this nice juxtaposition of his past being unable to move forward without his present. I thought it looked pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm always down for a good Thor story, and especially Loki is one of the. I feel like Loki has made an interesting change. He's no longer just a villain. He's very much more of an anti-hero.
Oh, definitely.
Now.
He was always an interesting villain, even going back to the very beginning, Drew, and always interesting. And if you're a fan of Norse mythology, you got to love Loki.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of Norse mythology.
Tom Hiddleston has definitely softened his image.
Yeah.
With the movies and try to make him more empathetic. And like you said, more of an anti-hero. But I'm looking forward to season 2. And but in that the comic series sounds interesting, but I'm not familiar with the writer or the artist on that, Drew.
They're both new. I've heard of Jermaine. I've heard of him before. I don't know Dan, but they said they're rising stars. So hey,
okay, you guys on the scene, so breaking, so something to look out for sure.
So, and something else that's interesting, and this isn't really a picture thing, was that Deadpool is going to be having a new series, which is actually a sequel to a popular series. It's called Deadpool Badder Blood. Bad Blood was a Deadpool series that had the return of Rob Liefeld to the character. So apparently it was very successful enough that it got a sequel. So according to this, Wade Wilson is back and he's bringing frenemies. So the villainous
and
Thumper.
couches.
Well, which Thumper, I was like Bambi, like the rabbit. So I don't know. Return to take out the man who created him. Wolverine and Cable step in for a daring rescue. But as Deadpool becomes embroiled in nefarious criminal machinations in Madripoor, will the trio be able to join forces, or will Thumper's agenda put an end to the efforts? So
Buck says they're able to join forces. Anybody want that?
I'd always be excited when that trio comes together with Cable, Wolverine, and Deadpool. That's always
it is. Yeah.
So many
there's
pouches.
bound to be some blood spilled. There's bound to be some blood spilled for sure,
and some good comedy.
And they're promising new characters. Some, I believe they said, who are sure to become the next fan faves, including the first appearance of Shatterstorm. And I was like, wow. That's what I said. I was like, wait a second. Shatterstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was like, Rob, we really
Yeah.
You did not really put them.
Is he going to be from the Flojo verse?
Hopefully. So that's out there. Honestly, I don't know. It's Rob Liefeld. I met the guy once.
He was so mean to an ex-co-host of mine. It was funny.
That is a great story, Jeremy.
It is.
I met him once, and I remember having to, because I had New Mutants 98, which is, I think, one of the few first appearances I own that I actually have signed. And I remember thinking, like, it costs money. I'm like, okay, fine. It's a first appearance. It's going to cost money. And then later on, I was dressed as Deadpool, and I had my group with me. And when I get a photo, it was like would have been $40. And then I saw this cosplayer I know, it was a female. She was just dressed as Deadpool. She got a free photo from him. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? This is bullshit. You're only doing this because she's a good-looking lady. Like,
yep.
Well, that feeds into Jar Jar's story. Don't interrupt Rob Liefeld when he's eating.
Yeah, never interrupt that.
If you don't have big boobies, don't interrupt him.
Don't do it.
I won't do it.
No, my ex-co-host, we were supposed to interview him in like an hour, and we were on lunch, and we saw him, and he was just like, hey, I'll go over to him and just tell him we're going to see him in an hour and blah, blah, blah. Nope. And as soon as he walked over to the table, Rob was just like, can't you see I'm fucking eating here? Can I not get a few minutes of peace? I was just like, oh, shit.
Okay, cool. So Rob Liefeld is very passionate about his salad. So,
yeah. Be careful.
You know what you should say? Hey, Rob, how mad you're getting. Can you imagine how mad we are when we see these feet?
We didn't interview him. I was just like, that's cool, man. We'll just skip that one.
Yeah.
He needs to embrace that. He just needs to do a comic all about feet. He should have feet in the whole
should be like
storyline. He should really feet, that's
call
what
it
comics
foot
do.
sore.
You embrace into your faults. So he should foot it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Plan. Foot it up.
All right. So then, true. Look, there was something about Captain America that you said.
Thank you, Kari. What a wonderful. So, speaking of Spider-Man earlier, acclaimed writer and filmmaker J. Michael Straczynski is returning to Marvel this September with Captain America #1. Now, Straczynski, aka by his comic name JMS, is known for his great run of Amazing Spider-Man that he did with John Romita Jr. He's really well known for his Thor run that he did with Olivier Coipel and Marco Djurjevic, among others. And now he's, after spending some time at DC, doing some stuff, films and whatnot, such as the Changeling script with Angelina Jolie, which recall did pretty well. He's come back to Marvel, and he's going to be working with Captain America, along with superstar Jesus Saiz. Again, continuing the wonderful tradition of Splash Pages mispronouncing creators' names. We'll make sure we have them all right for Terrificon. This is the artist. He's done a lot of DC work. I believe he did Swamp Thing with Scott Snyder at one point. I know he did some stuff for Infinite Crisis. He's also did Punisher and Doctor Strange. So the description for what they've said is, decades ago, Steve Rogers changed the world forever. Now, powerful and insidious forces are assembling to ensure he never does it again. Past, present, and future collide as the man out of time reckons with an existential threat determined to set the world on a darker path at any cost. So in the interview where he announced it, Straczynski said, overall, the goal is to do some really challenging stories, some really fun stories, and get inside Steve's head to see who he really is in ways that may not have been fully explored. If folks like what I did with Peter and Amazing Spider-Man and Thor, then they should give this one a shot because I'm really squealing for the bleachers in this one. And that's high praise because his Thor run was amazing. I mean, he had a small cameo in the first Thor. He was the civilian who found the hammer when it fell to the ground.
Oh,
tried
right.
to lift it.
Right.
That's JMS. And his Amazing Spider-Man, he was the one who introduced the whole spider totem magic side to Peter's backstory. So honestly, I know he was at Terrificon a couple of years ago. I got to meet him. Seemed, okay guy, little rough, but still nice guy. And honestly, I wish him the best for Captain America. I think it's going to be interesting seeing what he brings to the story. Although with really old characters in Marvel, I kind of hate to say it, but I've come to that point. I'm like, what more can you guys tell? Like,
didn't you work on Planet Hulk as well? Am I wrong?
No, that's Greg. That's Greg Pak.
Oh, okay.
Greg Pak. I have my Planet Hulk is signed by Greg Pak. So
hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah. My World War Hulk is signed by him and Dave Finch, who will be at Terrificon and who Steve is super pumped to meet.
I'm super pumped.
Super pumped.
David Finch is like my favorite living comic book artist. He's
a really nice guy too.
He seems it online. He seems like a very nice guy.
Oh, dude, and he responds to you if you message him, which blew my mind. A few years ago, I messaged him. I was going to see him at Boston Comic Con or something, and I was just like, "Hey, how many comics is too many comics to bring to have you sign?" He was like, "Bring them all." I was like, "Really?"
Yeah. Hey, Kari, you can tell him that he was the best part of Ultimatum when you meet him at Terrificon. You could just be like, your artwork was the only thing that kept me going, buddy. Wasn't the story.
I crawled through the desert, but you gave me water and manna. I don't know.
You gave me water.
He's just one of those artists that, like, I'm always excited to see his version of different characters. Like, if I've never seen him draw somebody, I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen him do Ghost Rider before. Like, holy crap, his Ghost Rider is the best Ghost Rider. I remember the first time I ever saw him draw Beta Ray Bill was for that like Omega Flight thing they did for like 10 years ago or something. It was really short lived, but Beta Ray Bill was in that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest Beta Ray Bill of all time.
His Dark Knight run was so beautiful. Like the art is just amazing.
His anytime he did work for the Ultimate Universe, like the X-Men, shit was gorgeous. I mean,
obviously, and his Moon Knight. His Moon Knight is just the most amazing. And the Bottoms is just one of my favorite, like hardcover, like graphic novel pieces that I own on the shelf. Like it's such a cozy, dark, goddamn dirty, disgusting, miry, awesome read. I just love it so freaking much. And like Raoul Bushman gets his freaking face cut off in the first 2 pages or something. There
you go, everybody. Check out David Finch if you haven't already.
That's energy.
Kari, what's next on there? Is it still
Doctor Strange, sir?
Okay, cool. So Jonathan Hickman has announced that he is working on a new series that was announced back in March called Gods, by him and Valerio Schiti. Valerio's done a lot of work with Guardians. He did some Miss Marvel, and he's a pretty well-known artist. So basically, as it said, that this book will see them together dramatically redefine Marvel's pantheon of cosmic beings and deconstruct the forces behind reality. So you're going to introduce new characters, all of them in a secret conflict at the crossroads of science and magic. So kind of as this will be happening later in the year, their debut is going to be peppered with variant covers showing the cast teaming up with other heroes and villains throughout. So we already saw one of them, whose name was Win in the Free Comic Book Day Avengers X-Men issue 1. So the variant covers will be 9 issues, which will all be taking place in August. That'll each include a bonus story written by Hickman that'll explore how these characters move through the Marvel Universe and how they interact with characters like Doctor Strange, who we just saw, the Guardians, Scarlet Witch, and others. So you're also going to see them make a guest appearance in July's Hellfire Gala issue 1, which is the beginning of the Fall of X event. So the main characters there we'll see are Win, who is a powerful magical expert, operated in the secret for 1,000 years, is now out and about. Aiko Maki, who's a high-ranking agent, loyal to the science, and willing to do anything to keep the quote-unquote building blocks of creation in balance. Dimitri, the science boy, who is Win's partner, who has a secret mission of his own, trying to figure out the truth of his past. Mia, the magic girl, a young sorceress, struggling to achieve her full potential. The Q-Spic core, which is an energy being of pure corruption seeking to shatter the systems. And Hickman said, when he came to Marvel a few years ago, he wrote 2 series Bibles. One was House of X, and the other one was Gods. That essentially he's super pumped to do this. He said Gods takes place in its own special corner of the Marvel Universe and the cracks that lie in the intersection of science and magic, and revisit some characters and concepts we've imagined for a more modern, continuity-driven audience. So, all of these variants you will start be coming out August 2nd through August 23rd. So definitely check those out. And it's definitely gonna be something we're going to be covering as time goes on. So it's a big story from what he's hinting at. But as we've seen from Hickman, especially with his work on the X-Men and other things, the guy has no problem delivering what he sets out to do.
Oh yeah.
And it's been a long time since anybody's really attacked the cosmic beings of the Marvel Universe, the Phantom Strangers, the Eons, the Infinities. So it'd be nice to see a nice change up on that.
I like the magic side of the universe. I really like all the mystical things.
And we've seen with him doing the behind the scenes. I mean, one of my favorite Hickman series, besides the work in the Ultimate Universe, is he had a series called S.H.I.E.L.D., which was explaining how the organization S.H.I.E.L.D. actually predates a lot of history that had been there for far longer than we realized. It was a really great book, and it was very, very nice with the history. So I'm excited. I mean, he's been doing great work the last couple of years, so why not? Why not? So next up is actually something that kind of piggybacking something that Steve said. It is confirmed that Jen McKay's Moon Knight issue 25 is the beginning of the end of Mark Spector's time as Moon Knight. Jen McKay's issue 25 is a monumental issue. It's going to be an oversized epic. We've mentioned it before. It's going to be a 2-parter that'll have Moon Knight 25 and then Moon Knight City of the Dead issue 1, where we'll also see one of them. We'll see his former Flame / colleague Layla El Faloui, who we saw prominently featured in the Moon Knight series, which has been announced for season 2. We're going to be seeing. It's going to essentially possibly be the end of Spector's time as Moon Knight. As it describes briefly, this monumental story will see Moon Knight's past and present collide as his old mercenary crew resurfaces. So, I mean, Jed McKay is a great writer. I thoroughly enjoyed his Taskmaster series when that was coming out. It was very short, but he has a good sense of humor. He's a great writer. But again, so like I said before, Moon Knight's been around since the 80s. We've redefined a lot of Mark Spector. There's only sometimes so much you can do with a character. So maybe this means that somebody else will be Moon Knight, which could really lead to some interesting possibilities. Why not?
Well, yeah, and it makes sense too if there's other avatars, other people who can be the avatar, or whatever. It's sort of like is a perfect character for there to be other people taking up the mantle.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So that comes out July 12th. Moon Knight issue 25, written by Jed McKay, art by Alessandro Cappuccio, Alessandro Vitti, and Partha Pratim. And the cover will be by Steve McNiven, the great artist for Civil War, Old Man Logan, who will, again, fun. I'm not trying to make all this, be at Terrificon. So, harmless, more third plug. So, now,
we gotta have Mitch on so he can hear all of our plugs that we do throughout the show.
Indeed, I know. It's like I'm trying to fix the dam. So, of course, I got to give some DC news very briefly because I really want to talk about Excalibur with us before we hit the 2-hour mark. So there is a milestone issue coming out tomorrow. Flash issue 800.
Wow.
So this is an anthology series.
I don't know if I like that cover.
It's kind of goofy.
Well, don't worry, Jeremy. There's definitely more than one.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah, there's definitely more than one. So it's an anthology issue. So you're going to have the current Flash writer, Jeremy Adams, and artist Fernando Pizarro, but then also a couple of other creators from the Scarlet Speedster's past. So you're going to have Mark Waid, Joshua Williamson, Geoff Johns, and then artist Carmine Gian Domenico and Scott Collins. For those who don't know, Mark Waid worked on the Flash series back in the 90s. Him, and then the late great Brian Augustin both contributed on Wade's 8-year Flash run, where he had a lot of really great stories. I know because I've been blowing through that in my mind, not reading like someone we know, Kari. Can't read 72 issues in one night, but I try my best. And Geoff Johns picked up where he left off. I mean, he needs no introduction. The man's been writing The Flash for God, whatever, feels so long. And then Joshua Williamson did The Flash, the New 52. So Carmine Giumenico was one of his frequent collaborators. Scott Collins was one of Geoff Johns's. So Collins and Johns are going to reunite to tell a Blitz-style story with Professor Zoom, a.k.a. Hunter Solomon, who was a big part of Johns' run. Williamson and Gio Domenico are going to revisit the love story of Barry Allen and Iris West following their engagement. And then aside from Mark Waid's story with artist Todd Nanook, the final story will set up the Flash's September relaunch with writer Simon Spurrier and artist Mike Diodato Jr. So 800 issues, man. That's a lot of Flash.
That's like Terry's 800 words a day. Or is it 8,000? 20,000. Jesus Christ.
Is that how many you read in a day? Is that
that's how many I have to read in a day. Otherwise I'm uncomfortable and I can't go to sleep. So like if I'm doing it in comic books, I'll go through like 30 and then probably read some of a story or something as I lay down.
30 issues?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, so Steve, the joke is that I've created a monster because I keep giving her books to read. So the joke is that we need to find her like a Galactus plushie because like she is a comic book Galactus and I have become her Silver Surfer. So she's like, find me new worlds. And I'm just like,
forth, Herald.
Steve, just to give you an idea, Kari, how long did it take you to burn through the whole Marvel Ultimate Universe?
That was under a month. I did the entire Injustice universe in 3 days, though, and that's 271 comics.
Steve, I know.
Yeah, she's a beast.
Well, they were doing
beast.
They do things like, yeah, we're going to do the last 6 issues of an entire series, and I'm like, I can't just do the last. Like, oh well, people were kind of jerks in it. Okay, that's what you know, and I'm like, I have to know everything, so I was just like, okay, fine. Like, you can't do it.
Yeah, she's our Brainiac 5. So you know,
Wow.
just a living computer.
That's pretty cool.
So
that's pretty
yes,
crazy.
but
that is definitely a mutant power. I mean, for sure.
Yes.
Speaking of mutant powers, there is somebody who doesn't have any, who is next on our news list, so you can get through this.
But
Drew.
Oh,
who's that?
Oh yeah,
who's next on our Drew list?
Batman. So I was hoping Leo would tell this because he's been a huge
That's a
fan of Chip
beautiful
Zdarsky's run.
Yes, me too.
Yes, and Jeremy now too. So Batman is beginning a brand new story arc, issue 126, which comes out literally tomorrow. So this is following the events of the title 900th issue. So this is written by Chip Zdarsky and art by Beline Ortega. So this is a new story that's going to reunite Bruce Wayne with Selina Kyle. So, but unfortunately, from what preliminary appearances are, that this will not be a good reunion, and supposedly the conflict will set to build for a crossover event happening in August called Batman Catwoman: The Gotham War, pitting the two against each other.
The last time we saw Catwoman, I might be wrong. Leo could probably correct me if he was here. I think that was when she left him at the not at the altar, but decided not to do the wedding. Was that not the last time we saw her?
That is the last time.
She took all his money.
Okay, I think you're. I think more has happened since then, Jeremy.
Has it? It's been a while since
Tell me everything that's happened up till now.
Money. Make money.
Problem.
So basically,
they all died and turned to oil. And then the Arabs came and they all bought Mercedes Benzes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the dogs came. You know what dogs do? You know what the dogs do.
Guys,
so
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to hop off. It's getting a little bit late.
Oh damn it! We were just about to get that Excalibur.
That's okay. Look what I got. I got a little buddy here.
Nice.
Aww.
Little
Kurt Wagner. It's Kurt Wagner.
It's Kurt Wagner. Yes.
Do you want to give us? Do you want to give us your quick opinion? Do you want to give us your quick opinion of Excalibur?
Sure.
Then, so
Excalibur,
we can say that it's a victor.
Sure.
And then you can bamf out.
I will bamf all out. Before I say that, I will say thank you guys for having me on and let me talk about my books again. And that's just the most amazing thing. You guys are awesome people, and I love the show, and I love all you guys. So I just thank you so much.
We love you too, Steve.
All right, thanks, man. And it's going to be fun. We're going to hang out at Terrificon. I'm psyched you're coming, Kari. That's going to be really great. I'm so looking forward to July. I got a lot of fun stuff. I'm going to a different con too, and I'm just dying for July. It's going to be really freaking fun. So I am a big Nightcrawler guy, and this guy actually just came out. This little pop finally. This is like the first freaking comic accurate Nightcrawler pop. Like literally, how many pops have they? Like how many versions of every character in the entire world do they have? Anyway, so Excalibur was a book I had to read when I was a kid. It's like, oh, this is like Nightcrawler's new team or whatever. Super weird book. Like, I mean, it's Chris Claremont. It's like, it's good stuff, but it's out there in a way that you don't usually see now, because now, like when Marvel does a funny book, it's like every panel has to be a joke or something. And with this, it's like, it's not that kind of funny book. It's funny in its weirdness, and they work in like weird like humor, but it's not necessarily jokes. But I will say the original, the first thing that they fight, I think it's over in 2 issues, are these characters called the Warwolves. And oh my god, I never forgot these guys. They were from the Mojo verse, and they're like these chrome plated dogs with like bird faces, and they talk, but they also, if they bite you like your body just hollows out instantly, and your like meat sack and clothes just slump bonelessly to the ground, and then they pick you up and wear you like clothes, and they look totally human. So it's like Edgar Bug from the first Men in Black, kind of, only it's just super seamless. Like it's really convincing.
Yeah.
So it's really like this weird combination of the creepiest, most like scary horror, like graphic thing I had ever seen in a Marvel book ever. And they're kind of cracking jokes as they go. The werewolves, like they're kind of like just like kind of snarky about it. They're like, oh well, this is a perfect fit. I always like a perfect tailored suit. Blah blah blah. And it's like, oh my god, you just hollowed that man out. Like holy crap.
Right.
And then when they look like people, and then they're gonna emerge as the werewolf. The beak comes out of the mouth. Like in that weird old movie, In the Company of Wolves. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Like it's so weird and gross, and I don't know what else to say about this book. It's I didn't get to reread a lot of it for this episode anyway, but I did reread the first issue, and I'm like, oh man, I remember all this crap with the werewolves. It's just insane. So anyway, have fun talking about it, guys. And Kurt bids you auf Wiedersehen.
Bam. Thank you so much for coming.
And 1, 2, 3, and bam!
Bam!
I wasn't ready.
Bam!
Bam!
Oh,
fixing it at it.
I'm bad at this.
Mutant powers.
Bye, guys.
Night, Steve.
Yeah, bye, guys. Take it easy.
Bam! Bam!
Bam!
There we go.
We did it. All right. So I agree with him. This was, and I've read a ton, and I've run a TED of X-Men. This was definitely more in the memorable range. It was also very dated. The only reason I know it was dated because how young Shadowcat is, you know, and especially like the event she's talking about. She's talking about the first team disillusioning, Doug Ramsey dying in the New Mutants. Like I was like, oh my god, like so much has yet to happen to you, kid. And it was just crazy. But there's so much happening, but it all worked. Like you got to give credit to Chris Claremont. He knows how to put together a team.
He can
really well.
Should we get the last 3 little news clips out of the way before we hop in, and then I can get the whole comic thing up and running?
Was there any more?
Yeah, just a couple things that Leo had set up before I had to go. The first is that they have changed the name of the Captain America movie to New World Order.
Okay.
And then there was just some
the Red Hulk.
Anthony Mackie hacking out with Harrison Ford on the set, having fun doing stuff there. And because I was from Brave, I guess before I knew they're calling it Brave New World, and now it's New World Order. So those I think are out of order.
Okay.
And then last, Chip Zdarsky is releasing another omnibus of Daredevil. So
now that could be interesting, considering that he did such a great run that Leo loves so much, which I'm sure is why Leo picked this.
Of course.
Daredevil being kind of similar, he does have powers, but they're, it's more radar powers, similar to Batman, where he's more physical strength of a man.
Well, I think the thing being is that Chip did such a good job of pushing Matt to new heights. And of course, he's also teamed with Marco Concetto, who is one of the best artists ever. I mean, if you ever get a chance, please check out the work he did on Greg Rucka's run of Punisher. The artwork is amazing. It's beautifully detailed, beautifully colored. It's just fantastic. I've got the pleasure of meeting him a few times. He's super pleasant. I believe he's an Italian comic book artist.
I don't believe
super
I've ever read a run of Punisher at all.
Well, I will always say if you're going to start Punisher,
worked on Daredevil before.
No, that's the thing. Like Chip. I mean, my introduction to him was when he was working with Matt Fraction on Sex Criminals. But then he started really blowing up the scene more as a writer. And I think, he did small things here and there, but then he's been doing Daredevil. He did this really great story with Pascal Perry which was a Spider-Man alternative take story, was beautiful. And then I forgot its name, but it was great. And then he's been doing Batman with DC. He's just firing on all cylinders, you know. And
Who cares
it's
about
really,
when he gets going? Yeah.
He's got a lot. He's got a lot of pots on his stove, metaphorically speaking. But yeah, Leo. Leo's going to buy that book.
Oh yeah. Was that the last news item there, Kari?
That is the last news item. Now let's see how I do here. First attempt at being.
And with the power of Leo, Excalibur.
Nice.
Okay.
So I just want to say, like, again, I never read an Excalibur issue in my life.
Really?
Nope, never read one. I read Uncanny X-Men, X Factor, X Force. I read Long Shot. Like I've read quite a variety.
Generation X.
I had never read what'd you say?
Generation X.
Yeah, I've even read that. But for the life of me, I never read Excalibur. So I was like, and I was like, okay, you got that. You got Alan Davis. I was like, okay, this is going to be, and this is early X-Men. And it didn't disappoint, but it was like Steve said, it was like, boy, this book got weird.
And real quick.
Yeah, when you start with any creature from the Mojo verse, it's always going to be weird. And here's the Warhounds, like he was saying, and they're just creepy and strange. But I thought this series was interesting. And the very, you had like characters that some were X-Men spin-offs, and then you've got Captain Britain, who seems like he's a little bit of a lush.
Yeah.
And Megan, who seems to have interesting powers. She seems to be able to draw power from the earth to get as much power as she needs as necessary. Yeah. She seems like some kind of an empath, perhaps.
Like an empath changeling.
Yeah. So it's definitely a powerful team, an interesting team.
It's the first time we've ever lost the Fleo.
Yeah. Indeed.
But Jeremy,
me, I enjoyed it. I've had the entire series for so long, but I had never read it. I've read different one shots of Excalibur, and I've known of the team, but this was really, as you said, with the Mojo universe, when you're first starting out, it was like, holy crap, what I wasn't prepared, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was, and also the real world problems, like you were talking about the lush of Captain Britain, and Nightcrawler and Megan there doing a little
almost kissing,
fooling around. It's kind of like, wow, man, you're putting these like real dramatic kind of like issues that would happen. I really liked it. That was fun for me.
Nice.
I feel like Claremont really knows how to escalate his characters. I mean, if you just think about this, in the first 5 issues, you deal with either a bank robbery or terrorist act, werewolves from Mojoverse, the formation of the team, the Juggernaut, and then
Arcade and Murder World.
Yeah, Arcade is like quite the hell of a villain to have to go up against.
The end of the series at least of this run of the 5, being the Juggernaut and then Murder World, man, just brings me back to early X-Men days, man. It just felt so like 1980s. It felt so good.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so funny because the way Arcade looks, like he's just some sort of Silver Age cheesy ass villain, and then you realize like the dedication that he has to his Murder World. Like he is not to be underestimated, regardless of how ridiculous he looks with that red hair and
the
white suit. He's like Yeah, he's like a murderous Archie. Like, he's like he's a murder Archie. You're like, Jesus Christ, like, this is what happens when you get rejected by both Betty and Veronica. You create your own little murder playpen. Like, Jesus. And I will say, like I said, we were talking about this before the show started. The fight with the Juggernaut was just so well choreographed. And I have to also give credit to Claremont. He knows how to tell a story concisely in one issue. Like, I feel like some people would have dragged out like the Juggernaut fight to like 2 issues, but everything was very cinematic. It all moved a certain beat. Everybody got their time, but I still love when he meets with Rachel Summers and she's like, "Hi, I'm an empath. Guess what I can do?" And he's like, "Shit, my helmet's off, isn't it?" And she just knocks him on his fucking ass. And that was great. And then also at one point, and I don't know if you guys picked this up, but at one point, didn't Arcade almost get his like head chopped off? And I thought he had like a bald cap, like she cut off some of his hair, and then I think another, right?
Yeah. I think she actually whatever the guy was taking or off with the head, like she skinned him. She gave him a nice little shave.
Off with their heads.
No, I wait a second. I thought that was when Rachel was possessed by that death character. She's swinging that fucking axe.
Yeah.
And he was just like, whoa. Yeah, like I said, it was a weird book, but I kind of miss the weird X-Men. You know what I mean? Because I feel like now the weirdness is always taking a back seat to like the politics and the real world and everything.
The seriousness of the tone is always like, "Arr!"
Yeah, and it was funny because like I've read some of Hickman's, era, the House of X era X-Men, and for a lot of what they did, very interesting, very. But sometimes I was just reading these stories, I was like, I'm kind of bored. Like, you know what I mean? It's like when someone tells you a big idea, but they don't sell you on it. You're like, oh, you're all on the same island. Oh, cool. Oh, nice. Okay. It's going to fail, right? Like, it has to. Because, Marvel characters can't be happy. They've got to be miserable because we're all miserable. So why should they have fun, right?
I guess.
I don't know.
But it was paradise.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I tried to attempt the Hickman era X-Men a couple times, and I couldn't get into it. Same thing. It's like, all right, here's a thing, and here's another thing, and there's another thing. And after you do a thing, and the thing, it's like, oh, you're really lessening the impact here.
So, Kari, what did you think, having, only read
the entire series?
Probably, maybe. But Kari, what do you think, especially
the comic?
Well, especially Kari, what did you think, especially since, to my knowledge, your experience with the X-Men have been X-Men of different universes. So what did you think?
I am from I used to read Excalibur, but when I read Excalibur, it was later on in the series. So I'm gonna have to go back and catch up. But it reminded me more of a soap opera, the first 5 issues that we read. And I mean, there was like action and stuff going on in the weird clown stuff too with Arcade.
Yes.
But there was just like the whole Captain Britain and his ex-girlfriend getting captured, and then Nightcrawler loves her, and what's going on here? And Kitty's all depressed, and it was just like, it was kind of a sad comic. And then giant exploding custard pies at the end. Splooge.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know how much of that I was able to get going because my internet was having problems there. I'm very sorry.
Yeah. But Kari, that's kind of how Claremont wrote a lot of his stuff. I mean, he is considered like the godfather of the X-Men because so much of the X-Men's world was his
stories are
creation.
Yeah.
But his stories were very often soap opera-esque, you know, big dramatic endings, emotional monologues. Like it you could be guaranteed at some point somebody would be walking away with a monologue in the background and there would be a single tear going down their cheek as they walked away. Like that was like a Claremont staple was that. And he was also very good at, hi, I'm going to summarize what happened so you don't have to read the book. We're going to just catch you up in 2 pages.
That was actually very helpful. You know,
Yes.
for if you, you know, you have the little footnotes like, and go see Uncanny X-Men number 196 or something like that for what this happened. But it does also, and remember, ding. So
I like when Lockheed burns down half the lighthouse.
Oh God, that little dragon.
Rocking right here.
Well, the same thing with that goon that Arcade had. It was like, I'll take care of him, and then it was like, yeah, you'll take care of him, all right. I was like, yeah, you don't fuck with a dragon, man, especially a little purple dragon. Come on, that guy was big.
Should we rate this bad boy, or is there any more exploration of the story we want to talk about?
No, I mean honestly, this was a nice gem to the yesteryear of X-Men, in my opinion, and I don't know if I'm going to read more, but I'm glad we read it. I don't know. How did you guys feel?
I felt I'm going to read more actually because I had a great time, and I've got to know what goes on between Kurt and Megan.
Oh yeah,
you like those real world stories and the empathy of how it could
happen. I like powers. It gets me emotional, you know. It's like, nice. Shit, what's going on here? And then, you know, later on, does she actually, you know, she's going through, because Rachel shows up and she's just like, oh, hold on, what am I doing here? If he's like so up in arms about this.
Yeah, so I agree, Jeremy. I'd probably delve a little further into it too, because that old feeling of the X-Men that they brought me, and this beginning 5 issues still feel like the team's super raw, and the writing is still a little early, so they haven't really gelled yet, and they probably haven't fleshed it out as well as it could be. So I'd like to see where they go with it. And I did read it years ago, but it's been since 1988. So
right.
I actually didn't do any extra reading on this one at all this time. I plan on reading more, but I'm going to go read some of the earlier X-Men so I have prior references first.
Yeah, Kari, have fun with that. Just remember, anything you read after about 5 years, it will be retconned. So just letting you know.
Yeah.
That is the X-Men way.
And again.
I know. I read it way back in the day.
And again.
So at a hair over 2 hours, guys, I think I am going to call this, and I'm going to rate this book at 4.33 BAMFs.
Okay.
What do you think, Kari?
I enjoyed it, but I am currently going to give it a 3.5 custard pies.
Wow. Okay.
Custard pies. All right.
I look forward to more, but it needs to build a bit.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to go with Velvet. I'm going to do a 4.3 bullshit he did. I'm going to go with that. I think it's a strong book. I agree with you. It's still early, so it's not.
And I'd like to give it the same as Velvet and Drew. Like, once again, everybody is pretty much on the same brain wave, I think, with this. It's still early, wanting to know more, needing to feel completion, and a custard pie, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So basically 4.33333 star BAMFs. So
BAMF.
Yep.
We're all badass motherfuckers.
And so, Kari, this is where you say there's been a lot of talented people.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us tonight on a wonderful, wonderful, fun, explosive episode of Splash Pages. We had Steve Van Samson. We had everybody with the gents, except for poor Leo, who's out with some back problems, but you got to have me instead. If you want to find me, look me up Kari Sanders on Facebook. When I'm not here with these folks, I'm also over with the PBDC folks, and you can just look up the main webpage there, psychobunnydc.com, and all of our info is there. Heading over to Velvet.
It's your man Velvet J here on the award-winning Splash Pages, and I'm signing off tonight. I'm not promoting anything. I'm not pushing anything. Everyone have a good week. Be chill. Don't fight with anyone. Love each other. Hug each other. Be good. Yeah, you do it.
Jar Jar.
That's a wrap, folks. I'm going to say all my spiel. Thanks for tuning into Splash Pages. Maybe I could say it right. The podcast always leaves you with a smile on your face and a new appreciation for the world of comics. Don't forget to check out Comic Book Lovers Buy, Sell, Trade, and Auction House on Facebook for even more comic book goodness. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review. Let us know what you want to hear more of in the future. Share us. Tell your friends about us.
Subscribe.
Anything. Subscribe. And I'm Jar Jar. See you next week.
Shit.
Bam!
Bam! And Drew dropped out again. Here we go.
Drew bamfed out. Now he's bamfing in.
All right. So, hi, I'm Drew. I'm on Facebook. I do things. Go to Special Man 1984. I'm on Screen Rant. I'm a writer there. I'm here with these guys. I have a mustache. Glad to be here. Thank you for coming.
Bam!
All right, guys. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for joining us.